Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Sign up for GoToMeeting using promo code STAR to begin your free trial. And MailChimp. Manage a list with up to 2,000 subscribers and send 12,000 emails per month for free with MailChimp.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Right, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Almost too much energy. I think you guys need to really chill out a little bit. This isn't Burning Man, okay? Cool it down, everybody. Bring the energy level down. Yeah, so as Seamus just mentioned, our exciting next talk is going to be the infamous entrepreneur, the CEO and founder of Weblogs Inc. and then Mahalo.com, Jason Calacanis, and he's going to be joined by ReadWriteWeb's managing editor, Hyatt, who nobly stepped in after Nick Denton redesigned his plans to be here. So, Jason Calacanis and Abraham Hyatt.
Does this work? Okay. Just kidding.
So
Are we going to play Scrabulous?
Was that?
We're going to play Scrabble?
So I want to just, what I'm hoping to do is sort of try and touch on maybe the topics that Nick was talking to you about. I'm not really
Yeah,
sure.
I'll answer pretty casual.
So,
I just need a cigarette.
so let's start with, so I'm going to try and stay a little bit media related, kind of grab
Yeah.
questions after that.
And why did Nick decide not to come today? Was he scared? Just for the record, every time we competed on every blog, I beat him 2 to 3 times the traffic. 2 to 3 times. Every time we went head-to-head. Engadget versus, what's his tech blog called? Gizmodo. Joystick versus Kotaku with Monoblog versus Jalopnik. We had at least 3 times the traffic of each of those blogs when we went head-to-head. He said I was the best competitor he ever went against. I crushed him every time. Just for the record. And I will say, he's the best competitor I ever beat.
You guys have known each other since the way...
Well, we knew each other from when we were both journalists. You know, I had started as a journalist. He was a journalist, sort of. He hadn't gotten a hit. He had sold a company called First Tuesday, and I had Silicon Valley Reporter, and he made a lot of money. I think he made maybe $10 million selling First Tuesday, and I passed on selling Silicon Valley Reporter for $20 million, of which I owned 86% of the company. That was a big mistake. I would have had $16 million as a 27-year-old. He then started Gawker, and I started Weblogs Inc. a year after he did. But he is a brilliant guy. And I really enjoyed competing against him. I still think pound for pound, he's the best publisher out there today.
Hello everybody, it's Jason Calacanis, the host of This Week in Startups, and I'm here to tell you about the wonderful GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting. Wait a second. No, I gotta start here. Wait. GoToMeeting. It's not easy to do that. It's much harder than it appears. I use GoToMeeting all the time, and this is one of the great things about having a podcast like this is that I get to pick the partners. And I made a list of the products I use every day, every week, and I gave them to the sales team, and I said, hey, these are the people I would want as partners because I use their product. Right at the top of the list was GoToMeeting because I use it every week. Let me show you how easy it is to set up a meeting, and I'm going to guarantee you it works, and it's flawless across all of the different types of browsers and desktops, everything. It just works. And when you're setting up a meeting, by definition, it's a meeting, it's important, and you want to look like you know what you're doing, because if you don't get that meeting started on time and easily, you look like a dope. I cannot tell you how many times I've been on an angel investing call. How many times has this happened? We've been on a pitch, and somebody can't get a goddamn meeting set up. And you're just like, you start feeling bad for the person because they've wasted 10 minutes.
Your first impression, yeah.
It's the first impression. Well, let me show you how easy it is so you don't look like an idiot when you're trying to set up an important meeting. Boom, you just go right to your desktop. This is if you got the software installed. I mean, dead simple. I want to schedule a meeting. Okay. What is the name of the meeting? Tyler's contract renegotiation, whatever. It's going to be today. It's going to be at 7 o'clock. It's not a reoccurring meeting. Well, it's reoccurring every year. So can I set it as, no, it's not reoccurring. We're not going to do this every week, Tyler. Provide audio information. Use the GoToMeeting integrated audio. Or are we going to use a conference call number? Like maybe you say, I have a bad internet connection here. I don't want to let people use the voice over IP. I don't trust the internet. I'm only going to do the conference call number. Or maybe we're only going to do voice over IP. I don't want anybody dialing in. I'm going to say provide both. And or I can put in my own conference call information. Hey, I'm going to put a password in here that Tyler rocks the house deeply. And then I just schedule that meeting, and boom, we're done. We're done, and I can go email it to other people if I want to. And an email invitation has been done. I can just look at the invitation text here. Boom. I can copy to my clipboard, and you're just done. And it's all done. In seconds, you've just created an easy-to-use meeting. So if you've ever had those meetings where it just works, here it is. Use your microphone and speakers. A headset is recommended. Or call in using our number. Da-da-da-da. When I see that, I know the person is serious. And they got the meeting ID, and it's from GoToMeeting. It just gives you that very secure feeling that this meeting is going to go off without a hitch. Don't look like a dope by using one of these other cheap pieces of garbage software that doesn't work, frankly. That's it.
They're dedicated to it.
They've been doing it for a long time.
It's in their name.
GoToMeeting. I mean, I don't know how many times I got to tell you guys about it, but this is the one that works.
It's not a tool that's meant for just chit-chat or whatever. It's meant for meetings.
It's meant for meetings. It just gets it done. And speaking of getting it done, what a great episode we have for you coming up right now. And the reason you're able to get this episode for free, the reason it exists, the reason we have HD, the reason we have beautiful lighting, the reason we have Tyler Crowley's insights, the reason we have craft services, the reason we've got engineers here who make it flawless and perfect and make sure it's uploaded to iTunes the same gosh darn day, which is a pet peeve of mine. Like, I can't tell you. I fight with these guys all the time. I want that video up within 3 hours of the end of the show. And it takes work. You have to bust your butt to get that show up and running. We have all this equipment. We got the TriCaster 850. That costs 40 dimes. It's not cheap. And we are so lucky to have GoToMeeting as a sponsor because it's a great product and it's flawless and it never fails. Thank you to GoToMeeting for providing everybody with this episode. Thank you, GoToMeeting.
So, speaking of...
And I'm including the New York Times and Arianna Huffington and all those folks. He is better than Arianna Huffington and the New York Times. He understands publishing better. He's just quixotic and quirky in what he wants to accomplish in his life. Like, I don't think he aspires to be Huffington Post or New York Times. He aspires to be influential and do things that interest him.
Is that quirkiness required in anybody who wants to be a successful publisher online?
I think the best publications are driven by unique individuals, yes. The best ones. I mean, Arianna Huffington's certainly a unique individual. Other publishers, yeah. I mean, I think publishing on the web, blogging, what was special about it, at least to me, was the unfiltered nature of it, and that it brought voices that didn't have a voice previous to blogs. And those voices were generally people who were unmanageable rebels from the existing ecosystem, and they sort of got kicked out of the ecosystem, essentially. Like, they were unhirable people who would be constantly being threatened with being fired for their behavior. But that at blogs, it's like, oh, you printed that? You didn't ask anybody to print that? Do you realize how dangerous that is? Let's give you a raise. Like, it was awesome that, I remember the day the Engadget guys came to me and they had made a video of the bicycle locks, the U-locks, the kryptonites, being hacked with a big pen. And I said, wow, is that video real? They said, yeah, we read about it on a bicycle forum. One of our guys was an avid bicycler. And they said, what should we do with the video? I said, publish it. They said, but this is going to result in like millions of bike blocks being opened or whatever. So they're already being opened. If you know how to do it and it's on a bike forum, every thief in the world knows it. The public needs to know, like put it out there. But I think that kind of like quick publishing, unfiltered, is what made it successful. Now, I mean, blogs are just generally bad, I think. I think it's like actually, blogs have collapsed on themselves largely due to the things that Nick and I did and had early success with.
Those being?
Frequency of publication, what people call link baiting now, but which originally was just honest, opinion. So you basically had the star players come in, do really amazing blogs. Then you had this sort of like next group of people come in, and then we're like, into the 10th wave of bloggers. People come out of journalism school here and they want to be a blogger, but they're not really qualified to be a blogger. They don't have either deep knowledge of the space or that sort of wittiness. And so it's just filled with people who are looking, going, oh, well, if Dave Weiner gets a lot of attention for his blog posts, I have to deconstruct Dave Weiner, right, who was really the grandfather of a lot of this. Or Peter Rojas did really well with his posts, so I have to deconstruct Peter Rojas or Lockhart Steele or Elizabeth Spires. They look at those early, legends of blogging and say, let's deconstruct it. And one of the things they deconstructed was this concept of link baiting, which some people attribute to me, which is ridiculous. If you attribute to anybody, you would attribute it to Dave Weiner, but he didn't do that like as a marketing strategy. I mean, this is what happens in every medium. You have some pioneers who have early success, and then people come in and try to replicate it, and then the marketers come in and they basically destroy it. So now marketers are going, oh, how do we create something that's link baity, because that's what got Dave Weiner all these hits. And now Tech Meme or Memorandum or whatever you read is just one-upmanship of who can write the more salacious headline that gets the most links. I mean, Business Insider, Henry Blodgett actually, who's turned out to be an amazing publisher actually, he's become awesome at this. He writes headlines that have absolutely nothing to do with the story, that are ridiculous and offensive sometimes. And he's like, oh, we're just having fun. And I'm like, okay, I guess so, it's fair. But he sort of deconstructed the concept of the blog headline and made it just incredibly link baity. But then people now look at blogs as like, meh. I don't think there's that much interesting going on in blogs anymore. The interesting stuff's happening on email and video. Blogging is largely dead, in my mind.
That was one of my questions. Do you think that we're getting to a post-blogging era? Not that blogs are going to disappear, but you're looking at email, newsletters, there's video.
I think largely people, when you see like things like the AOL way, like when I sold them Weblogs Inc., the AOL way would have been called the Weblogs not way. Like Weblogs Inc.'s do not do this list would have been the AOL way. Like they basically took what we did and they just like sort of reverse engineered the magic to try to recreate it. It's almost like a boy band or something like, oh, we know that people like to have these 5 things on a blog, so let's deconstruct it and rebuild it back up. We need to have a salacious headline, we need to have this. And when you take those rebel types and you say, we're going to make 80% of their job doing social media, or 85% of it, and then 15 or 20% doing the actual journalism, the actual writing, the actual opinion, the actual research, the real shit, they're going to leave. And that's what they did. I mean, the guys leaving from Engadget, that was, and I know the guys obviously, and they won't say it publicly, but they have told me, like, they were just disgusted by what AOL was doing to the brands. And then I had people like, Cinematical was a brand I created to be part of AOL, part of Weblogs Inc. when we sold it. The Cinematical writers, I knew this was happening because like a year and a half ago, the Cinematical writers wrote me and were like, Jason, you have to save us. They're making us take down reviews. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, they have this big ad buy on AOL Movie Phone, and we wrote a bad review of it, so they took the review down. And I was like, well, that was the one thing I told AOL never to do, just edit the bloggers. And I told all the bloggers, the second AOL starts editing you, you should leave. And I'm very proud of the ones who did leave.
I want to go back to something you said a minute ago about you were talking about the quality of blogs, and you said something about qualifications. They're not qualified to write for, you said write for a blog, and I thought that was the power of the blog, was that anybody can generate.
Yes, so yeah, I have to unpack it a little bit. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I mean, but the people who were the original group of bloggers, I think, and I'm not just like being old school, there are some who have come after that who fit the model perfectly. I mean, I think actually Henry Blodgett and his team are awesome. I mean, the headline thing is just a little aside. You have to have deep domain expertise to write a 100-word piece and have it matter. And so when Peter Rojas, who understood everything there was to know about gadgets, wrote 100 words about, you know, I don't know, the fact that this has a phone now. It didn't originally have it has a phone now because it went to Verizon. No, it has a camera, right? If he writes 100 words on the megapixel change on this, it matters. But the other people who don't have domain expertise, if they write it and they're just reblogging, as we called it, reblogging, that doesn't really fly. So somebody with a unique perspective and deep understanding, good. Somebody who is just, you know, coming out of school or, you know, it's a run-of-the-mill journalist doing blogging, it sort of falls flat. Deep domain expertise. That's what we're actually moving to, I believe, in the age of the next phase of the web. The Web 3.0 is really the age of expertise. And I think if you look at the Panda update and the intentions of that by Google and the anti-content farm movement and the anti, you know, sort of too much blogging, too many blog posts movement, not enough substance. It's all based on the fact that, yeah, too many people have a voice, and the stupid people have a voice. I mean, there was this amazing meme that was going on yesterday or the day before that Gabe from TechMeme tweeted, which was a sign that somebody put on a McDonald's with a McDonald's logo on it that said, African Americans must pay $1.50 more due to some instances that have occurred at this McDonald's. And he linked to people searching for the, you know, live frog image or whatever. And it was just like 100 people a minute saying, McDonald's, you have to change $1.50 charge for African Americans. And I was just like, wow, people are so stupid. Like, they don't understand that this was like some piece of odd performance art or whatever. Just a lot of stupid people out there, and if you let them publish, I mean, they have the right to publish, sure, but does what they say matter? No. I mean, and that's the problem. I'm not being elitist. I'm being performance, you know, meritocracy sort of based. Everybody has a voice now. Twitter has reduced blog posts down to phrases, and most people are stupid and shouldn't write it, and they're bad writers. I mean, that's the truth, right? Most people are bad writers. And so it might not be that there's actually not any good bloggers left. It's that they're drowned out by all the bad ones.
So you're advocating for fewer voices?
Better systems for toning down the stupid people and toning up the smart ones would be actually a better way to do it. I mean, I'm not saying people don't have the right to do it. I'm saying the end result of it is a lot of people writing the same. I mean, why do 100 people go write a blog post about whatever the top story on TechMeme is? Just to get the link and to try to get a little bit of traffic. They're just driven totally by traffic, not driven by art. They're not driven by their interests. They're not following the muse. They're just trying to get a couple of page views. You gotta follow your muse. You have to have some intent other than to try to get a bunch of tweets. And that's what's missing now.
Do those systems and platforms exist yet?
I think people are trying. I mean, Twitter is actually, and I thought Klout, I don't know, anybody know what Klout is? K-L-O-U-T, has a bunch of social media. Anybody here a social media optimization expert ninja? Raise your hand, I will not make fun of you. I'm gonna make fun of you, you're smart for not raising your hands. No, anyway, Klout is this incredibly, I thought this was the stupidest idea I'd ever heard. Like, oh my God, we're gonna make a score based on your social presence. I was like, oh, this is gonna be dumb, because then everybody just games it or whatever. And then they made a little toolbar for Twitter, and they put people's Klout scores. It actually works. Like, the people with higher Klout scores are actually generally more interesting, or generally more important, I guess, on some metrics. So when I see somebody has a Klout score of 40 or 50 or 60, I think, that's an interesting person. Doesn't mean somebody with a 20 or 30 isn't interesting. It means they might not have shown the signals of quality that makes them truly interesting yet. They could be undiscovered, i.e. So one of the things I think Klout looks at is how often you're retweeted and how often people reference you in a tweet, that kind of stuff. So I think actually those signals of qualities will happen. I mean, Facebook is doing that with your wall now, right? In order for something to get on your wall now, not the all wall, but just the wall you see, the person has to get like 3 or 4 comments in order for it to sort of get over this wall of whatever, true interest in the item is. So I started writing, instead of just posting links, I started writing like 2 sentences or 3 sentences that pose some questions about the link on my Facebook page, and 3 or 4 people would respond, as opposed to none, and then it would make it to other people's walls. So actually, if you want to game Facebook, all you have to do is if you write a post, if you get 3 or 4 of your friends to start a discussion inside the post, it'll go on everybody's wall. But if you don't, it won't. So what you do is you have person A write something, person B write something, and person A write something back to person B. You actually have to get a threaded discussion going, not just 5 people writing, cool. It's somebody writing, that's stupid, another person saying, no, it's not, and the other person replying, okay, I agree.
But then we're back to just gaming systems.
Exactly. Right. No, I'm fascinated by how much of the system, how much of content creation has become gaming the system now. I'm actually sort of disgusted by it in a way. I mean.
So how do we get from gameable systems to Web 3.0, which you were describing as experts?
I think, yeah, it's a really tough thing. I mean, if you look at the content farming, angle, which I sort of got roped up in with Mahalo, it was exactly that race to monopolize on these techniques. And I regret doing some of them, like producing too much content. And I got, about a year and a half ago, long before Panda, I was just looking at our base of content and saying, I'm paying people $10 an hour or $10 a piece for Middle America to write pieces, but I just don't, it doesn't feel like it's my best work, and I said, this is not working, and we kept seeing like presentations from demand media or associated content, and we'd be talking to VCs or partners, and it would be like, demand is now creating 7,000 pieces of content a day, and Associate's getting 3,000, and Mahalo's only creating like 150, and we have to get our page creation up. And I was just like, well, what's the point of all these pages? Like Google's just going to eventually kick us all out. And I said this like a year ago. Unfortunately, it didn't help me any when the Panda update did come. But about a year ago, I said Mahalo. The team looked at what was working, and it turned out the videos we had done on YouTube like 2 or 3 years ago were getting 1 million views or 500,000 views, and they had experts in them. And then it clicked for me. Oh, if we put an expert on camera talking about their expertise, it inherently has value. So why don't we just do that? And we just did a hard pivot, and now we've made 45,000 videos like that, and we're making 700 a week, so it's still a big number, but everyone has an expert in it. So if you make 50 videos a week with a Photoshop expert, that's a lot better than 50 pages a week or 500 pages a week by somebody in Middle America, who you pay $10 an hour to, who doesn't really know Photoshop, but they're just writing pages, which I think is what, everybody was doing during the SEO run-up and before the content crash, the great content crash of 2011, the Panda crash.
How did Panda affect it?
It cut our traffic in half, basically, and luckily I'd raised a lot of money for the company, so we had wherewithal, and it didn't affect our YouTube traffic at all. In fact, it was sort of a bizarre thing to have like one half of Google saying like, we hate you, and then the other half of Google, YouTube saying like, oh my God, you're such an important partner to us, we need to do more work together. And so I've been trying to work that out with them. I mean, I've had all kinds of, Gadget and Autoblog got banned from Google for a couple of days each. And generally they were reasonable about reinstating and getting our traffic back. This time around, I think because of the FTC investigation in Google, I don't think that they're going to do any manual updates, which is a real problem. They used to do manual updates. They would deny it, but they would say, basically there was a thumb on the scale. If you talk to anybody who's a content producer, you could go to Google and say, hey, this is not reasonable, and they would say, all right, we'll work on it, contact us in a couple of months. And they would generally massage the search results. They would do human-powered search, which is where I started Mahalo. Now, I think inside of Google, there was always this fight between the guys who wanted to do only algorithmic and then algorithmic with a little human on top. So it wasn't algorithm versus human. It was algorithm versus algorithm, 80% human, 20%, whatever the percentage is. The algorithm people have won because the FTC wants every example of when Google does something manually, because now they're looking at it going, oh, well, Google, you put local search at the top and you moved Yelp down. And you put YouTube videos at the top and you move other video players, Metacafe or whatever, down in the rankings. We put your own frugal Google Shopping search engine at the top, and you took those other ones out of search results. So, Google's under massive scrutiny now because of they're competing with the search results.
Hello, everybody. It's Jason Calacanis, the host of This Week in Startups. One of the great things about having this program is that I get to pick the sponsors, and we only pick the sponsors based upon the products and services that myself or Tyler Crowley, my partner here, use. And one of those products that I use all the time is MailChimp. That's how I send my email newsletter. As you guys know, 2 years ago, I quit blogging, started doing email, and that list grew to over 20,000 members. I needed a way to manage that massive list. I couldn't use this desktop software. I needed software as a service. I got MailChimp. And one of the best features of MailChimp, I have it here on my screen that I'll show you, is I can segment my list. So here's my list. I'm clicking the segment button, and here I get
that interface.
It's just a beautiful interface.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous interface. And I can say, hey, show me all the people who have been added to the list after a specific date. So here I go. I say, hey, I want just the people who have signed up this month. And now I could segment and say, hey, just show me who signed up this month. Hey, here's the 81 people. Now I've got all the 81 people here. I hope, well, I can't show all their emails, but I can just click the Send To button right here. And when I click that Send To button, now I'm just sending to those 81 people. This is called segmenting your list, which is a great thing to do. And you can segment it by location or any information that you collect from users or some information you don't collect. One interesting thing you could do is, and here's a list of all the different ways you can segment. By first name, by last name. I can email all the Tylers on the list, by what company they're at, their job function, what they're interested in, because I ask people what they're interested in. So I could say, hey, if you're only interested in venture capital, I'm only going to email you about that, gender, location. But hey, look at that, Klout score. Remember we had Joe Marchese from Klout score, and I could say, give me people who have a Klout score that is great.
Fernandez, I think you mean?
What's that?
Joe Fernandez?
Who did I say?
Marchese?
Oh, Joe Marchese is another entrepreneur. God, I'm sorry. I'm tired sometimes. It's Joe.
You just came back from New York just for this, huh?
Is it back here? Yeah. So anyway, the Klout score is greater than 20. Boom. Show me the people who are, oh, that's 500 people. That's too much. Let me just make it 30 here. So show me the people who have Klout scores over 30. Boom. Here's the 360 people. I can just start emailing to just them. So I could, if I wanted to give a free ticket, I can go all the way up the list. I can say, hey, over 40, over 50, over 70. Who are the really powerful people here on the list? And boy, I got the right people on the list. I don't want to show their emails. But an incredibly powerful tool. Go check it out. The free plan is always free. And this is one of the nice things. They give, if you have a small list, like only 2,000 people or less, and you do under 12,000 emails a month, they do it free. And they just charge you as you go. You get these sort of MailChimp points. And it's just an amazing product. So thank you to them for being a partner on the program. And thank you for your attention to the sponsors. Without them, independent media like this trip to New York, where we shot a bunch of great episodes, would not be possible, or the trips to San Francisco or to London. It costs a lot of money to produce high-quality content like this in HD and do it on a consistent basis. And without partners like MailChimp, we couldn't do it. Thank you, MailChimp. MailChimp.
So as a web publisher, you're clearly trying to prioritize, readers, but you're also trying to prioritize for the algorithm.
I prioritize for myself and being proud of what I created.
How is that balance going to shift post-pandemic? How is that?
Well, I mean, everybody is saying we need to be able to show a page and be able to back up that this is good content. So the people who are doing, I think what's going to happen is people are going to look at the page and say, who is the author of that page? And what is their qualification to write that page? That's why I think Klout is actually interesting. I want to create Klout for authors on the web. Like a page rating system where you can say, like, this author is really smart. It's Walt Mossberg, it's Peter Rojas. Therefore, their page on, how to reboot your BlackBerry with a keyboard is more important than a generic one. So that somehow authorship actually takes some place in the ranking of search results. think that would be really awesome if that existed. So I bought the domain name pagerate.com the other day. That was a good domain name, but I can't start another company. So if anybody would like to start a company and do pagerate.com, I will back it and give you the domain.
So you started in the 90s with Silicon Valley Reporter.
Yeah, 96.
Little print.
Yeah.
Grew.
It was a photocopy of the first issue.
Weblogs comes along.
Yeah.
How, I mean, there's some very obvious things how media has changed online in ensuing years. What do you think are some of the most fundamental things that underline that change? And how is that going to continue to change in the coming year?
Well, things have gotten a lot faster, right? So, I mean, speed really matters now. I mean, when you used to cover the Consumer Electronics Show or E3 that just occurred, you could send journalists, New York Times would send 3 or 4 journalists to CES, and over the coming months, they would release 3 or 4 stories each. So they might send, let's say, 3 journalists, they do 4 stories each, a dozen stories come out of CES. The first CES we went, we saw John Markoff or somebody else in the New York Times, and I said, oh, hey, how you doing, John? Hey, what's up? I said, how many people you got here? Or I saw Hansel, somebody. I said, oh, yeah, we've got like 4 people here. I said, oh, okay. He goes, yeah, I'm doing like an event piece like Monday. He goes, how many people do you have here? And I said, 9. He said, well, how many pieces are you doing? And I said, well, we did 15 so far today. You know, this is like at noon on the first day at CES. I mean, we went to CES, guns blazing, 9 bloggers in 2 hotel rooms. It did not smell well. It was pretty gross, but it was like 9 kids and me, you know, on like a road trip to CES doing 30 blog posts. So speed is the #1 thing that has changed. Volume has changed. Expertise has changed, right? You could read the New York Times and a journalist could interpret what Fred Wilson has to say, right, about venture capital. That's how it used to be. Fred Wilson went through a New York Times or the Daily or the Deal or Wall Street Journal to get his opinions out to the public. Now he's got more people reading his blog than the New York Times has reading probably, you know, venture capital content, let's say. And he's got more important people. So he doesn't need the New York Times anymore. He can go direct. You know, like if I have a message I want to send to consumers as an expert, I can just send it directly to them. And I probably have an audience now too. So it actually makes it harder. The journalists actually have to really compete against the experts going direct to the consumers. And the experts can build their own audience. So that's what I think the future is. I think the experts become publishers, and then those publishers, you know, and it's already happening, by 1,000 cuts, they kill the big, you know, beasts. Or people round them up and make Weblogs Inc. and other sort of things like that where you collect experts. Or what I'm doing with Mahalo, which is collecting experts, and then enabling them to publish on a platform. So speed, expertise, and obviously overhead. I mean, everybody's like, oh, you know, the New York Times is a disaster or whatever. The New York Times isn't a disaster. It's great content, but you know, if you buy a huge building, you know, the balance sheet may be a disaster. I'm not an expert on these things, but you know, if you have 5 people editing a piece that turns out to be not as good as a piece done by somebody who's not edited, who's going to win that race? You know.
So in this Web 3.0 expert-specific, you know, reality, does speed matter as much?
Probably not as much. And I think you're starting to see that happen. So there were a lot of people who wrote a lot of stories about Bitcoin recently, and then I had seen a bunch of little stories about it, but I wrote a definitive, you know, 1,500-word piece with 2 of my full-time researchers. I have a little publication called Launch that's going to destroy TechCrunch that I started hiring writers for. So if anybody's looking for a job, I'm looking for some writers. But I am very competitive, and I don't like it when people steal from me. But that's a total aside. And that piece wound up being the piece that people said, oh, that is a sort of definitive piece, and that piece basically launched the whole Bitcoin discussion that's going on right now. And Bitcoin was at $4 and went up to whatever, $40 in the time since I wrote that piece a month ago and had a podcast on it. So I'm an expert in internet stuff. I wrote the piece, I did a blog post, I did a podcast on it, and now everybody else is following that. You know, the New York Times will get to it 3 weeks later. So yeah, I think actually longer form stuff is, longer form, in-depth, expert-driven stuff can trump speed, yes.
Well, we're not going to lose speed. I mean, speed I think is built into this. It existed in terms of generating or creating for newspapers long before, you know, everyone turned out to compete each other, long before the web. we're not going to lose that now-driven mentality.
No, I think actually some of I think Gabe Rivera of TechMeme is probably one of the top minds in publishing right now, even though he doesn't get credit for it. He's sort of a quiet guy who has no publishing background, but he's created device after device on TechMeme and memorandum that are very innovative. And one that he did recently where if you retweet the TechMeme link, which is super sinister and brilliant, I love it, you get your tweet put up there. And then he took a group of people, 100 Twitter accounts, and said, you're pre-approved, you're whitelisted. So if I go to TechMeme, anytime I comment on one of those stories and tweet to TechMeme, I automatically get listed. And he said, if you abuse it, obviously I'll take it away. And so I can, or Chris Dixon, or other folks, or Wilson, I suppose, could tweet something about the TechMeme story and instantly have their 140-character assessment of it. And so I think that's where speed goes, is like, to Twitter. Twitter's a publishing platform for quick speed, for headlines. You'll have these little aggregators like TechMeme. They're not little anymore, but they'll be significant. And they'll all be referencing the expert content. And the person who gets squeezed out there is the sort of general journalist. If you're the concept of journalism, I think, is going away. Like just being a writer is not enough.
So you need to be a writer and
an expert. You need to have some depth of knowledge, or else you're going to get run over by an expert, and you're going to be made to look foolish.
So what about day-to-day things that you don't need an expert for? So for instance,
give me an example.
Someone covering, local journalists covering their city council meeting. And
right.
All that you need is just some basic information about what happened.
Yeah, so perhaps in that case, some people would be satisfied knowing that somebody asked to, build a McDonald's in their neighborhood. But if there's somebody who had McDonald's watch and was a blog about McDonald's and the expansion of McDonald's, I'm absolutely certain that they would do a better job covering the launch of that McDonald's with the knowledge of what it takes to launch a McDonald's and how much it costs and how many have been approved on a percentage basis in the last year. And they're going to have that expert opinion. So then the local person, this is why patch is going to fail. It's not going to work. Because those, you need to have somebody with some deeper domain expertise will win. There's other reasons why it's going to fail too. But I think it's going to be, even in those edge cases, everybody always says that, but nobody even reads that local news. Does anybody care about what happens at a council meeting? Nobody cares. So,
it happens in small towns.
I think generally people don't care. I mean, they have shown they don't care about that kind of stuff. Maybe if it becomes like a flashpoint, they care about something, but generally speaking, they don't care about that kind of stuff. And so when people bring up that edge case, the local town meeting, who gives a oh wow, somebody's building a second story of their house. It's not important generally to people.
So if we're eliminating, or maybe not eliminating is the right verb for that, those sort of bland middle voices, I thought that's what Web 2.0 was all about. I mean, I thought that's what
it was.
Weblogs was all about, was enabling people like
that. And we enabled too many.
So
it collapsed on itself. You have too many fish in the pond. Then there's not enough food for them. All the fish eat all the food. And then there's no food, so the big fish start eating the little fish. And then we go to the era of big fish.
So what happens to
they get eaten?
WordPress?
WordPress? That's a good question. I think that those, people in their blogs, and they'll keep going. I just think the experts will inherit the space, and they're going to garner the they're going to garner the attention. So, as an example, I'm looking for experts at Mahalo who play guitar or do Photoshop or play video games. I'm not looking for a video editor to do that. I'm looking for somebody who has the video editing skills, who can make the video, and who are the expert. I call them the triple threat. They can produce the video, they can shoot the video, they can edit the video, and they can be the host of the video. Triple threat. Right? Well, producer and editor together. Editor and shooting is the same thing. It's a triple threat. And if you have that, it's oh, well, how can you compete if you have to send 3 people? If you're a publisher of videos and you need a producer, an expert, and a video editor to shoot it and to edit it, and I have one that's all 3, I win. So smart publishers are going to find those people and bet big on them.
In this expert
economy,
yeah. What are the risks that are inherent in that? What would you concern you if we were to completely move?
Oh no, I think it's going to be awesome. I don't know that there is risk. I mean, I wouldn't be getting a journalism degree, that's for sure. It's a waste of time. I would be, sorry, this is part of the Columbia Journalism School thing. I think it's a great value. But no, listen, they know exactly what I'm talking about. People graduate with a journalism degree and then they go try to work at a publication, and that publication's got to look at somebody with domain expertise and somebody with some basic writing ability. People would rather read an expert who doesn't know how to use commas or has poor sentence structure than read somebody without expertise who has perfect sentence structure.
We'll switch gears and we're going to throw out a couple from some questions people asked online. Along the same lines with students, to a user, Jay Hando, said, what technologies would you tell current students to learn for career in web startups?
I think the best thing you can do is to have a strong online presence in a particular vertical and show some passion and have some knowledge base about a vertical. So when I am hiring somebody, the first thing I do is look at their social media presence. In fact, on my hiring forms, I have how many Facebook friends and how many Twitter followers do they have. If somebody has none or they don't have a Twitter account or a Facebook account, I'm just not going to hire them. It just makes no sense. Like if I'm hiring you to be in this space and you don't even have a Twitter account, that means you're clueless. Now, if somebody has their own domain name, that's even better. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a little test at Mahalo right now where I said everybody has to have their own domain name on the internet. So I told them they could charge Mahalo back for the $10 to register their domain, and it's working. Like everybody has now set up their own domain on Tumblr or WordPress or Squarespace or any of these great services. You really just need to maintain that online presence. And so if you want to work in the group deal space, write a blog about your love of group deals. And then when you go apply to Living Social or Groupon, they're going to be like, oh, this person has passion for it, knowledge for it, and they have an online presence. I'm going to hire them. And if you have a resume, I mean, nobody looks at resumes. Nobody cares about your resume. They care that you know how to set up a website on the internet, you know how the internet works, you know how social media works, and you have some level of passion and expertise for a vertical. So just pick anything. I mean, if I would skip school, number one, so that's just a waste of money. Skip school, and then take that money and start building an online presence and writing. I mean, no, it's not a waste of money. If you have it, you can go, great. But you have to start wondering about the opportunity cost and the money being invested in higher education if people come out and they don't even know how to set up a domain name and be prepared for the real world.
But some of those metrics are still available at this point in time. We don't have a way of saying, this is how we define an expert, and this is how, it's why publishers...
Well, if you can game the system, that probably makes you twice as valuable to most people hiring you, because they're like, oh, this person understands the system enough to game it.
But this is why, online publishers are so reliant on page views, because that's what makes it easy to see, that's what's valuable. But what's the metric that shows that you're an expert? Because that doesn't necessarily mean...
It's a great question. We actually created in the content management. I had a brilliant partner at Weblogs named Brian Alvey, who then went on to do a content publishing platform called Crowd Fusion. As a matter of fact, TMZ was built on the Weblogs platform, which was called Blogsmith. TMZ left that to go to Crowd Fusion when Brian had his new platform released. That's a big vote of confidence, one of the largest blogs in the world. And in that content management system, he came up with a system to look at who had the most comments per blog post. Comments per post. That's an interesting one. And now people look at retweets per post and likes per post and all kinds of stuff. How many people, if this was 2006, when you walk around the room, it wouldn't be Twitter or TweetDeck that was open on everybody's desktop. It'd be Technorati, because that was the place where you could see who was reblogging your stuff, and people would be just refreshing who's linking to Calacanis.com. So actually people linking in and rolling your story forward. So if my Bitcoin story got launched 100 stories, that's a pretty good indicator that that person who wrote it's got some level of expertise. If you write it and nobody responds, and it doesn't inspire anybody, well then the person may not be that good of a writer or inspire people to continue the discussion. So being referenced, is an important one. And then obviously retweeting. and your amplification metric. And can it be gamed? Of course it can, but you can't game something. Gaming occurs on the edges. And people get sort of obsessed with gaming when they don't have the goods. So if you're a great publisher, if you're Nick Denton, you can 5–10% of what you can do can be gaming, and then the people who point at that are the people who can't compete with you on the other 90%. You know, he still breaks awesome stories. You know, he still gets the inside goods. He still does that kind of core stuff. And he shows up every day for 7–8 years now, where other people give up after 3 or 4 years. I mean, that's the other thing. Everybody expects instant success. It's sort of a joke, actually, to me, where people are like, I can't figure out how to make my content work. And I'm like, okay, well, how long have you been doing it? Oh, 6 months. I'm like, 6 months? You know, like, come back to me in 6 years, kid. You know, like, publish a title for 3 or 4 years before you complain that you don't have an audience. Like, it's like everybody's so goddamn entitled. They just expect they're going to have success for showing up and, you know, doing 6 months of work. What people don't understand is hard work is not enough. You know, like, it has to be hard work plus time, you know, plus cleverness, you know, and maybe at the end, some luck, you know, and perseverance, and you'll become successful. But I don't know, it's millennial kids, I don't get it. I'm like the old guy now, I'm 40 years old. Like, I was up here when I was 26, like causing hell when I was like publishing. Now I'm like this old guy, boring. I guess I'm boring. Am I boring now? I feel like I'm boring now. It makes it exciting.
Another Twitter question, and it sort of segues in with that last one. Who gave you the best startup advice, and what was it?
That's a good question. I've gotten a lot of great advice over the years from a lot of great mentors. Mark Cuban said to me one time, "It's 100% of shots you don't take." Elon Musk said to me one time, people greatly overestimate the downside risk. Those things stuck with me. Cuban also said to me one time, sales solves everything. I like that one. Fred Wilson said to go big. You know, just go big. Felt like, you know, there's no reason to not go big. And I learned to take that advice over my career. Now I try to do everything and try to scale it, you know, why not? If you're going to work 10 hours a day on a startup, you might as well go for trying to reach 1 billion people, because it's the same work to reach 1 million as it is to reach 1 billion. You just don't put 10 hours a day in.
Unrelated question, I think you described it, Mahalo is at 4.0 now?
Yeah, we sort of iterated to 4.0. I mean, I spent the first 2.5 years of Mahalo trying to do human-powered search. My concept was 10 blue links on a page were, you know, sort of not a great experience, which back in 2007, people had 10 blue links on a page. And, I had been to Korea and Japan and seen crazy search results at Naver and Down and Hatsune and Yahoo Japan, and wanted to bring that here. So I started putting videos and images and content on the same page with the search results, and I had the worst thing an entrepreneur can have, I think, which is moderate success. Because moderate success sort of, it's hard to know, like, I gotta pivot and do something else, but when we looked at it, you know, 2.5 years in, sort of concept of human-powered search was growing like this. Google and Bing totally changed how search results looked over the last 3 or 4 years. You know, they didn't stand still. They started doing comprehensive search results. I just decided, you know, do I want to be in a 4% growth business, or with the video stuff, just give people the answer, you know? And so instead of trying to route people around the internet, why not just give them the answer in video from an expert? Because I can't, it was also out of frustration, like, we can't find anywhere to send these people that actually has a good answer from an expert. Because you also have to remember, experts don't want to write an article in every case. You know, so like if you're like some expert at, you know, putting in windows in your house, I don't think you're going to write a story about it. So then it's up to the $10 an hour, you know, content farm writer to do it, who's never installed a window. But what if I take a camera and say, can you show me what you're doing? And just say out loud what you're doing, and the person doesn't have to do any work but install the window, which they're doing anyway. Sounds good to me.
So video is
100% of what we're doing. We have 45, I'm not talking about it generally because it's so awesome that I don't want to tip people off and create competitors, which is typically what happens when I talk about what I'm doing. Like, which is funny to me because I was like, hey, human-powered search is going to change everything, and I'm like racing and I don't realize it's a cliff. And then at the last second I'm like, oh wow, that's a cliff. I'm making a left turn, I'm going somewhere else. I make a left turn and just watch like all these competitors behind me go boom, 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 right off the cliff. It's like, you got to really think about what you're doing, not just follow somebody blindly. But we have 100% focused on video. We've got 100 people. We make a couple $1 million a year. We have 25 million, 30 million views on YouTube. I think we're the largest non-UGC provider of content to YouTube right now. And so 700 to 1,000 videos a week. I've got 90 people, and I'm hiring 100 more video editor, expert type people. And if you go to YouTube, you type in Mahalo guitar, Mahalo math, Mahalo cooking, any of those, Mahalo anything, Mahalo how-to, you'll start to see the videos. And they get thousands of views each a month. And video consumption is going to go 5x over the next couple of years because of iPads, Wi-Fi, wireless broadband is arriving. And Walmart in Circuit City, which one's out of business, Circuit City or Best Buy? Yeah, one of those two. I don't know which one's still in business. They only are going to accept TVs that have internet-enabled features. And when you turn on a Samsung or a Vizio, or has anybody turned on a TV now and seen like an interface there? Yeah, anybody buy a TV in the last 3 months? When you turned it on, did it actually have like internet and YouTube and Netflix on the thing? Raise your hand if it did. Yes. So the trend has already happened. There's 5 people out of 200 people here who had that. Everybody will raise their hand next year. And Apple's coming out with their own line of televisions. And so when Apple has TVs that have Wi-Fi built in and all your media from the cloud goes there, I mean, you're going to have an Apple TV 2 years from now on your wall. And then it's going to be, that's it, game over, Apple wins everything. It's going to be a $1 trillion market cap company. And that means people are going to get to their TV and they're going to have a decision to make. Do I just click next, or do I type in what I want? Like truly type in what they want. And so if you were into Bob Dylan, you're going to just type in Bob Dylan, you're going to see our videos on how to play every Bob Dylan song. Or a series of videos that we did on explaining the meaning behind every song. So education, if you think about, we're an education company now, doing video-based education. Who's in that space? It's like you have Rosetta Stone over here, which is a huge business, but you pay $500 for the DVDs. We're doing it for free. And that's going to be the revolution. We're going to do what they do in one category in 20. We'll have, I think we're going to get to 1 million videos. We're doing about almost 1,000 a week now, and I'm putting 4 or 5 more studios online this year. We'll get to 3,000 videos in the next year per week of high quality with an expert in them. And then I'm going to try to get to 6,000 or 7,000 videos a week. If I get to 1 million videos and they're worth, $1,000 to $5,000 each in enterprise value, I've finally built my $1 billion company, which has been my goal.
At what point in time, though, is there the risk that begins, that those videos begin to turn into the content farm?
I won't go there. I'm not going to do it.
Does that happen with video?
It will happen with video, but it's not going to happen under my watch. I made that mistake once. I'm not making it again. I lowered my standards once to try to keep up with people. I will never do it again. It's the biggest mistake in my career.
So you consider yourself an education company? That's your...
We are a video education company. We educate people through videos on the internet. That's it. Mahalo, learn anything. That's our tagline, learn anything. 45,000 videos in, we're 4.5% of the way to 1 million. Or if you think that there's 500,000 videos in education, which some people do, I think there's 1 million that can be made. We're 10% of the way there. But when you start thinking about and these are 100% owned and operated videos by us, made in-house. We're not using in the crowd. Crowdsourcing is bullshit. You're going to get low quality content. I'd rather spend the money and get the better quality content.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
And talking to us.
Until we get the money, spend the money and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money and defeat you. It's been a minute, so you thought you were safe. You trapped behind these bars like you locked in a cage. Stuck behind bars, making minimum wage. Your bar's tender. Here's a tip, get you a raise. Ain't nobody gonna offer a profit to motherfuckers who ain't rocking it, topping the hip hop charts and then stopping it. Quick to drop a set opposite of the hottest shit, copping it. It's the profit kid. Home is quick to accomplish. I'm positive. Getting green like a roster with a lot of dread. Money's piling up like the Washington Monument. The way I'm steering this track, it'll make you caustic. The only time you gonna see green is when you barfing. I'm the Mothman, consider this the prophecy. I'm in it to win it, that's why I'm making a profit, see. And I won't spend it till my rich is stupendous. And I'm selling sicker than tech, cause the method is to keep it independent. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money and defeat you.